I know. You're probably shocked. I'm back for week 2 in a row.
2 weeks in a row.
Thank you so much for rejoining me this week. I'm going to be talking about pronouns. So, what is a pronoun? I know it sounds kind of silly, maybe, to some people, but if you aren't in on the conversation about gender and sexuality and LGBT issues, and you haven't heard about pronouns being different for people, you might not really know what a pronoun is. So I'll go into a little bit about what that is. A pronoun is the word that you use to replace someone's name when referring to them. So for instance, my mom, her name's Teresa, I would say, Teresa dropped her purse. So her would be the pronoun, or I could say, she is my mom. She would be the pronoun there. So pronouns are she, her, hers, he, him, his, they, them, theirs. These are all pronouns that we use to replace people's names when referring to them. Some people use pronouns other than that because they don't feel comfortable with any of those three, but those are our top 3 that we usually hear and talk about and hear in everyday conversation. The reason for my conversation about pronouns today is to emphasize that we shouldn't assume people's pronouns. So just as you might see someone with a certain skin tone and know that that doesn't necessarily say what their race is, you might see someone with a certain presentation, like clothes or haircut or something like that, and you wouldn't know what their gender is just by looking at them. So it's a complex topic. You wouldn't really know, again, someone's race without asking them. Just because they might look a certain way, you have no idea what their race is without asking them. The same goes with gender. You might think, but wait, if I see someone with, say, long hair wearing a dress and they have painted nails, I can assume that that person's a woman. But not necessarily, because you think about maybe different cultures. I'm sure in your mind you can picture a different culture where they'd be wearing something like a dress with longer hair and maybe have painted nails, and that person could be a man, and you just assumed based on some parts of their gender presentation. That being said, all different kinds of presentation, clothes and makeup and hair and all of these things can be interpreted differently by the person viewing it. So if that's possible, you can also understand that that person who is doing all of that gender presentation might have a different perception of their own gender as well. And now you might think, why does it matter that I might have a different perception of this person's gender than they do? Well, that comes up when you are speaking to or about them. And this conversation is not only for trans people, this can be for cis people too, and it is. A good example of a time that you might offend someone by calling them the wrong pronouns, but they're a cis person, is maybe, for instance, in the lesbian community, there are plenty of women who identify strictly as women. They're not transgender in any kind of way. They were born female and everything. Not that that's anybody's business but their own, but my point is there are plenty of women who wear all men's clothes. They have a short haircut. They never put on makeup. Men's shoes, no nail polish, all of that. So their presentation would be very masculine. However, they strictly identify as female. That's just how they feel comfortable dressing and wearing their clothes and all of those things. So you might call that person he, or say that guy, or refer to the person with the wrong pronouns, and you had no idea that they identified as a woman the entire time. So that's a great example of how the conversation on pronouns doesn't only involve trans people. That being said, trans people are very often affected by this situation because either these people don't have access to transition, they don't want to physically transition, or they're mid-transition and haven't gotten to where they feel they're most comfortable yet. So their presentation might be a little mixed to an outside audience. By mixed, I mean, for instance, right now, I am a year and 5 months on testosterone at this point, I think. And being a year and 5 months on testosterone, the level of testosterone in my body might be compared to like a teenage boy. So my voice is, it has deepened, but it's kind of, it's on its way to settling where it's going to be. I don't have a bunch of facial hair. I have some body hair, but not a ton. I think I have less, like a lower muscle content than the typical man would, and I wear my hair up in a bun. So I have all of these maybe conflicting, if you were to not know me and see me in public, I have some maybe conflicting things about my presentation, but my pronouns are he or they, and I frequently get called she, her. So that tells you where, if a person is mid-transition, depending on where they want to be, it might be unclear to you as to what their pronouns are, so it would be hard to address them without knowing their pronouns. The takeaway of this whole video is just to give you some examples for why people might go by certain pronouns that wouldn't be 100% clear based on their presentation, so you should never assume them. So, all this being said, the simplest way to know someone's pronouns is just to ask them. And my tip for asking someone their pronouns is to try to make sure that they're alone. Don't necessarily pull them aside. If you're in front of a bunch of people, it might cause the people to ask what you were asking them. But if you kept someone alone and you want to make sure that you're using the correct pronouns, you can just say, hey, what pronouns do you use? I use he, him, or they, them, and then they can give their pronouns, and then you can just politely be like, okay, thanks, wanted to make sure you were comfortable. So all you have to do is ask. If you don't find a good time to ask where you are able to get them aside and not make it a production in front of everybody, if you don't get the time to ask them what their pronouns are, you can either avoid pronouns or use they, them pronouns, or don't really speak about that person until you understand more about how to address them. So that's this week's topic on pronouns. I'm gonna have, I'm sure, more videos about pronouns, going more in depth about speaking about pronouns with people, asking people their pronouns, introducing someone who has different pronouns, all these kinds of things. So if you have any questions about pronouns down below, please leave them in any comment box. I don't know where this is going to be for you, but comment some questions and I will address them in later videos. Thank you again for coming back for a second week with me, and I'll see you guys next time. All right, bye.